Tech Shamans, we understand, cause we are the Tech Shamans. Dude, I got this cool thing to show you. Really, man? Yeah, it's far out and technical and stuff. Awesome. Yeah. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Cool.
Shaboom, it's us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. That's right, it's Monday.
It is Monday.
It is. It's
Monday after a long holiday weekend.
Very long holiday weekend.
Yes, full of food.
Yes, I actually gained 4.5 pounds in 4 days. I think that's pretty good.
Oh, wow. That is pretty good.
That was really disappointing after having lost so much before that. But at least I know how to do it now. And I know exactly what happens when I fall off that wagon. So
You fall into gravy.
yeah. And no, for me it was pumpkin pie.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Oh my God, yeah. And I mean, what is up with the pumpkin pie and chocolate eclairs? They are like my two favoriteest things in the world. And it's like, oh yeah, well you can't freeze those. Oh no, I gotta eat those. I'm suddenly from Wisconsin.
I guess it'd be pretty redundant to ask what you did this weekend because I think everybody did the same thing.
No, actually, I tool tech this weekend.
Did you?
Yeah. Interesting technology that involves horses. And we decided to rearrange our barn setup. And we have 3 new stalls. And there were stalls before, but they were just like, little makeshift stalls. But now they're permanent. And they actually make these stall mattresses for the horses' feet so they can stand on them comfortably all day. And they are this super high-density compressible foam, about 1.5 inches of that, covered with a rubber mat, 3/8 of an inch thick, all the way across wall to wall and up the sides, that you have to, attach all the way around and then trim down all around the edges of the brackets that attach it on. And when it was wild because, you're on your knees trying to put in the screws and everything all the way around, and it's not uncomfortable. Because you're basically on a giant foam mattress.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. Interestingly, these foam mattresses are usually about $5,000 a stall. And we found out, why. It's because it's about $500 a stall for the mattress.
Oh.
And $4,500 a stall for the installation, yes, which we did ourselves. So it was just, 3 days of hell getting these things in. Oh, but now the horses have these really, really awesome mattresses, and so we're excited about that, and it'll be much easier on their feet that way. So that was my tool tech and horse tech weekend.
Horse tech?
Horse tech.
I didn't tech.
You didn't tech at all?
No, I kind of disconnected. I really didn't.
Really?
Anything, yeah.
You didn't even take phone calls?
No, as a matter of fact, I did not.
Smart man. Smart man. Did you watch anything?
No, I don't recall watching anything either.
So you ate and slept?
Yeah, that's what you do. I mean, it's Thanksgiving.
Well, if you eat turkey, then you can't help it because of the tryptophan. But if you're a vegetarian, you eat and work on a barn.
Eat, sleep, and we bought stuff.
And you, yeah. Well, and how'd you buy it?
No.
You went online, didn't you? You went online.
Of course, to find out that it would cost too much to have shipped, so we had to go driving. Drove all the way up to Ocala and back.
Really?
Yeah, just for fun.
Oh, we actually went the other way. We went to the Sarasota Medieval Festival this weekend, the Ren Fair down there at its new location, and the new location is stunning. It's over now, but next year, if they're in the same location, strongly suggest going.
That was after they moved from the old location. Where was that?
They were on the fairgrounds, I think, down there. And this is, I don't care where they were before. This has to be one of the most beautiful locations for a Ren Fair. I mean, the new BARF, Bay Area Renaissance Festival, in case you're wondering what that stands for, which is the Tampa Ren Fair, they moved up to a location in Dade City.
Right.
That's really cool, but it's way out there. This one is right off a main road, 15 miles from 75, so it's not too bad because it's like 60 all the way. So it's 15 minutes off the road. And boom, it is gorgeous, tree covered, and it was really nice.
I heard they had more room out there.
I will say they have a lot more room available. They also have a lot more room at Dade City. They crunched it in. You could tell they brought in to close off sections of the field because they didn't have enough vendors and acts because it was done so last minute. But yeah, so if you get a chance, I strongly suggest both of them. And of course, Bay Area Renaissance Festival will be coming up in February, March, April. So there's that. In the meantime, there were things that happened in the tech world. And the first one that I want to talk about, which is really cool, is the Reality Labs, okay? Reality Labs is doing research into virtual reality, but having it so that you can feel it and touch it. And you can sense the texture and the surface and the pressure on it. Yeah. And
that's weird looking.
That is, that thing right there, I don't think is their actual tech. It is amazingly cool. But what they're working with is that they're working with pressure and small servos, okay, that will release air pressure into the various elements in the hand, because they would have to put 1,000 little pistons on your hand in order to actually make it work right. But there's so many levels of things that they have to do in order to make this work, in order to make those sensations actually happen. And everything from the fluid dynamics, when they switched away from little servos and pistons trying to make little bits of pressure all over your hand, over to the fabric that they have to use on it, because face it, it needs to fit 1 billion hands and no two are the same. Right. For all intents and purposes. And so you've got to have a fabric that will stretch or contract or whatever it is it has to do in order to make it fit your hand properly and then hit the right areas of your hand when you're wearing it.
Be resilient and not,
Exactly.
The little air chambers in there, make sure that they're not going to, disintegrate after time and wear out, prematurely and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, you don't want it to be, a 2-month thing that you got off Wish.
Yeah.
But the one of the interesting things I found in the article is something I hadn't even, I think about, but I don't think about, and that is, yes, you can reach out and you can feel the bowling ball that you're picking up, okay? Mm-hmm. And they're working on making the haptics feel like it has weight in your hand so it pulls against the skin. But they can't actually give it weight in the haptic unless they extend it up your arm, so that it's actually able to push down, against your own body. But the whole thing would just be a mess. But the real wild thing is, how do you make your hand stop when you get to the edge? You'll feel the edge, but you can then pass right through it because there's actually no object there.
And that's when people's minds will explode and everybody will die.
It's actually a eugenics program designed for millennials. But some old baby boomers are back there going, "This'll get them. And they'll show those damn kids. Get off my lawn."
They'll feel the ball and then they'll push through it and to be like, "Oh," and then that's it.
Yep.
Reality has just
myocardial infarction
itself,
right there.
It's the end of the world.
Exactly. Everything you thought was real. But we think of that as coming into play where if you're in a virtual reality simulator room and there's a chair in front of you, test it. It may not really be there. And so sitting on it may be a really bad idea. And that kind of makes sense. But having to deal with the objects that way.
They're going to have butt sensors.
Yeah. Well,
I feel the chair coming into reality. Fall.
If you remember in Ready Player One, they had whole haptic bodysuits.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that's really where this is going to be heading. But the first thing you got to do is get the hands done. Because once you have the hands, you can then do just about anything. I mean, one of the examples they give is building a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, I mean,
And
just imagine being able to feel each individual piece.
Yeah, and the texture of the piece and the edges of the piece.
Yeah.
And then when you put it into place, it goes click when it fits right. You know, 'cause it does have that snap into place feeling. And so, you know, being able to recreate those things in real time. Now, some of the stuff they've been working with, you know, has got like a 2-second lag time. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. You know, I mean that's
All they're gonna do is, you know, manipulate the lag in the system so that way it can catch up. And eventually, as they progress, they'll eventually.
Well, they are working, you know, 10 to 15 years ahead of the technology, is what they're trying to do. They're saying, oh, okay, this is where we're going to want to be in 15 years with this. So what are the technologies? What are the materials? What are we going to have in order to be there in 15 years? And they're reverse engineering the whole process.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, we're going to need a material. Well, you know, I mean, who starts off? No, it's like, I'm going to go get some material off the shelf and let me see what I can make. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to build something that will actually deliver on schedule in 15 years.
Right.
And that's how it's a little bit different mindset, but it's not that much different from the way apps and video games and everything and software basically is being developed when we know that, you know, with Moore's law, speeds are doubling every 18 months.
So is this a company that Facebook's about to purchase?
It's probably a company Facebook already owns.
It's probably it's probably already either in the works or something. I mean, I see that.
Can you imagine being in artificial reality and suddenly the system just goes down and everyone's in there and they're all conversing and suddenly it just goes black?
Yes, and then all their avatars are all standing there, but everything's black around them. God.
Yeah, that would be just, you know, that's kind of what happened, you know, 2 weeks ago with Google Cloud, Snapchat, Spotify. They all went down simultaneously. They all started row. Now, that was back on the 16th, and we still have basically no explanation for what happened.
Is that how Spotify started playing? Wow.
All
those Christmas songs started playing backwards.
John is dead. John, no, not this John. It was John Lennon. Okay, that was a Beatles reference. Sorry. No, John is away with family business. So, yeah, they all went down. There's no explanation. They're hoping you all forgot. Did you all forget? We didn't forget because we see these things.
We did not forget.
No. We will not forget.
The elephants in the room will not forget.
Well, the ultimate thing is happening with Apple. This is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm not sure how it's going to catch on, but I think since they're going to make it so widespread anyway with their service centers, you might as well go consumer level, and that's what they've done.
They are a hardware company, so it just makes sense to sell hardware. If you're going to, you know, the average DIY person who's going to change the screen in their iPhone, they're not looking to reverse engineer your product and make a new style iPhone. They just want to change their screen.
Right.
So, you know, and a lot of times it is easy, you know, relatively easy to change the screen in the iPhone.
The screen or the battery. And this is what they're doing. They're making basically DIY kits for you. They've got 200 different components that are regularly used, starting with the iPhone 12 and 13 and going forward. And they have these components available, and they will be able to, you'll just be able to go in and go, hey, my screen is cracked. Let me just order another one. Yeah. And then you can go ahead and install your own screen if you are technically savvy enough.
And it makes sense because Apple's going to have a lot of, they're always going to overproduce like replacement screens and everything like that. And if they're only going to limit those screens to be supplied to, you know, authorized retail centers,
repair shops,
repair shops, there's going to be, you know, so much inventory left over, and when they move on to the next product, what are they going to do with it? It's just a waste of product.
That's an interesting perspective. I mean, there are a lot of people who may not be near an iPhone repair shop, and they're using, you know, secondhand, you know, crappy parts and, you know, not OEM stuff.
And the funny thing is, you know, the people that have, championed for, right to repair, stuff like that.
Yeah.
iFixit, for instance,
Yeah.
is a company that goes out and they have, everyday people show videos on how to repair or how to replace, screens, batteries,
Yeah.
things like that in your devices, and it shows you, what level it is to repair, how hard it is, and then they sell the kits to do it, including, replacement parts.
Right.
It just makes it's no brainer. Apple just go ahead and do the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if they sell it to an authorized repair center or they sell it to Joe Schmo, they can pass along the exact same warranty and things
Yep.
like that. They don't have to give like extended warranties. They mess it up, they're gonna have to buy it again from you. And that's what
Exactly.
you do. That's what Apple is, a hardware company. So the more people buy from them, the more revenue. It makes sense.
Yeah, why give the revenue to someone else?
Exactly.
And there are a lot of shady places out there that are doing these repairs, and they are not using original Apple parts. And so being able to order from Apple, know it's an Apple part, because you received it from Apple yourself. Mm-hmm. And even if you then take it to your buddy who is good with electronics, and said, "I'll do that for $50, go ahead, just order the parts and I'll do it."
Yeah.
Okay? At least it's original Apple parts that are going
Right.
back into your phone. And they're new.
And your phone.
They're new. They didn't come out of the other guy's phone that he stepped on that this guy then said, "I'll give you $10 for the phone." Et cetera, et cetera. You're not getting somebody's used battery stuck in your phone, which I think happened to my laptop once, but
No.
No, Adam replaced the battery on my laptop. He wouldn't do that. He gave me the box it came in. Not that proves anything, but
I found that box in the trash.
I bet you did. From a real repair shop. Oh boy! So that helps. That will help people that just want to DIY their own iPhone repairs,
Yeah,
starting with a
and
12.
again, and that made sense.
Starting with a 12.
Right.
Now, this is kind of funny because raise your hand if you're old enough to remember the Y2K debacle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and how everybody was terrified that the whole world was going to get shut down because the year 2000 was not actually programmed into a lot of Microsoft products.
They were even coming up with stickers, like.
I survived
Geek
Y2K?
Squad. Yeah, no, Geek Squad made stickers for people's computers. Don't forget to,
Yeah,
check
run your
off computer,
upgrades,
turn off your
because
computer at
there was.
2000.
I mean,
It
I know
was a
some
mess.
companies put on entire divisions for Y2K monitoring.
Yeah.
Because it was terrifying that all your computers were just going to go boo, and you were going to lose everything. Now, 20 years ago, that was nowhere near as disastrous as it would be today.
Right.
But we have our own little mini Y2K coming up, or came up, or is happening right now, which has to do with GPS systems.
Correct.
Because the GPS, international transmission place basically runs on a 10,000-bit code or whatever it is that can only handle basically 1,027 months or something like that. And as soon as the month rolls over, it sets back 19 years.
No big deal.
And it just starts off at zero again.
The problem, and the other
Yeah.
problem that raises is that GPS system. There's a lot of network servers out there on the internet that are connected and pull their time from that GPS
Yes.
system, and those main servers tell the internet and other devices connected to it, hey, this is the time it is. This is the proper time, and when you're connecting to this particular server or that server, for credentials to match.
That's that's one of the big things is if they send you a password that expires in 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes expired 19 years ago. Okay, no password they can send you will ever work.
No, or you might not even be able to get to. You're not going to get to your banking sites. You're not going to be able to get
Yeah.
to a lot of secured sites only because the security certificate's it's going to be mismatched.
Right.
You're not going to. You're going to get on the internet and you're going to be like, oh, I
Yeah.
everything's down.
Yeah,
It could be
GPDS or GPSD is the basic software, and if you're running 3.2 through 3.22, then you're going to see everything go to hell in a handbasket real fast. And don't downgrade, upgrade to the new 3.231 that's out, and that will, that has the patch in it to be able to handle the date change. So making sure that happens is probably a good thing. If you happen to have any of those major software systems,
they just add another number onto the one. It's still going to roll back, and they're just going to.
But it'll roll back in 190 years instead of 19 years. No, it actually has been rolling back on different subsystems all the way through. So that actually has been happening. But everybody's just got to deal. But there's a big one that I think went down on the 24th, and so I guess we survived.
Yes.
Yeah.
We survived the apocalypse.
Yeah. The clockpocalypse, the alpocalypse. No, which are never mind. Okay. Oh, but now this one's kind of interesting, and that is the Pegasus iPhone hack. This was reported a couple weeks ago, and some of the fallout from it is still happening. A company in Israel developed a software that would allow a sophisticated actor to, and I don't mean like, Alec Baldwin, who's obviously not a sophisticated actor, would allow a sophisticated actor to step in and monitor everything going on in your iPhone, including, controlling the camera, the microphone. They would know everything you were doing. They have all access to your files, the whole 9 yards. And it was an easy, and the installation, I'm not even sure how, but it was able to get in piggybacking on regular apps, or obviously if you got a text message and you click the link, it would install it. But this was some serious problems.
Yes, it was.
And
they had that software out for sale. They developed it, and then they sold it to government agencies.
Yes, they sold it to large state actors, and that's why I use the word actors. Because what you found was it was being used to monitor journalists. It was being used to monitor politicians in opposing parties.
Correct.
And it was also, everything from dissidents to protesters, and just being installed on their phones, so they could be monitored and know what was going on. The journalist one is, there was a New York Times journalist who received the email from Apple. If you haven't received the email from Apple, then you don't have it on your phone. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
But she received it, and she was actually a correspondent in the Middle East. So she was in connection with a lot of undercover, anonymous sources and so on, who were reporting to her on her iPhone their stories about abuses and transgressions. And it appears that her phone was actually hit by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And that's just probably an educated guess. But again, I think it's a great example of how business transcends that whole, Middle Eastern conflict thing, because remember, this was an Israeli company that developed this software, and the Saudis bought it from them.
Right.
So I think that's really cool, that it's kind of like peace in the Middle East for all the wrong reasons. But hey, it worked.
Yeah, and the good thing is at least Apple's out there, not only mitigating the problem and stopping it.
Oh yeah.
But they're also allowing people to know when they were targeted.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing, because if they may not feel comfortable going into that position again, or that country again, especially yeah. You have the reporter.
Yeah.
She might not want to go back over.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not like reporters ever go missing in the Middle East.
Yeah. Right.
Ever.
So yeah, this was a big
for
thing.
long.
Yeah, for long. And at least I think Apple also wanted to reach out, and kind of put it out there so they can, make people feel more at ease with their software.
Yeah, one of the first things they did was go out and they just killed the bug.
Yeah.
Okay, they found the hole, they patched it.
Then they explained it to everybody.
But then they explained it, and then they contacted the people directly. And that's really important, because you're right, these people's lives are in danger.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, this will relate to another story that we get to down below. And we'll get there in a second. But right now, it's time to talk about pigs in space. Well, not quite pigs, but asteroids in space. And there is a 430 foot wide asteroid that is crossing right through Earth's orbit. And that sounds scary until you realize Earth's orbit is a whole year around the sun.
Yeah.
And it's passing through one of them. So it's missing us by a few million miles. Yeah, apparently about 3.8 million miles. And that is going to be, it's interesting to observe. And it would have, I guess, you know, if it had impacted with Earth, if it had been a different time of year when this thing came through, if it had been slowed or sped up, whatever, you would have been looking at an explosion roughly 1.7 times the size of the largest nuclear blast ever detonated on Earth. And wherever that would have hit, I can assure you, it would have made the little Y2K bug in the GPS seem like no big deal. Because even over the oceans, which, you know,
well, look what happened over in Russia.
probability, speaking, in 1908, Tunguska?
No, was it Russia or the one that recently happened, where it was about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago, that the small asteroid exploded in the air and it shattered all the windows. And
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
I forgot. But that just goes to show you the immense power.
1908 Tunguska blast over Siberia. I mean, that's insane. If that had been a populated area, it may have been a populated area. We have no evidence because there's nothing left. But you've got hundreds of square miles of forests just leveled and all blasted outward from the center of the impact. It never actually hit the ground.
Yeah.
It blew up before it hit. And yet it still generated enough to wipe out what would have been, easily the size of, Manhattan or Los Angeles, and just wiped it right off the map in a heartbeat. So, yeah, in the meantime, keep looking up. And the cool thing is, there's all kinds of stuff going on in space that we need to think about. And one is, this is really cool. Since we no longer have a 9th planet, because Pluto's been downgraded, then upgraded, then downgraded, then upgraded, then whatever, who knows? Okay, the Pluto thing. They're saying that Pluto is not a planet anymore, but maybe this one is. And it's so far out, it is approximately 70 times further out than Pluto. But it's massive. You're talking 3 to 5 times the mass of Earth, and it is floating around. They have been trying to explain a lot of the, weird behaviors of stuff in the asteroid belts that are just like a little off, when you get out that far. And a 9th planet makes the most sense. But what was cool was they were back looking at the radio images from the 1980s, and they spotted a blip in one that nobody had noticed before.
Damn blip.
And they went ahead and kept going, and they found it appeared 2 more times. And normally you'd say, well, it's low resolution, it's old stuff, it's right on the edge of the sensor ability, yada, yada, yada. But the 3 blips all make a contiguous line for a trajectory. So it's like, wait a minute. If it were 2, it'd be 2.3. 3 that make contiguous, points on a line. Those are, that's probably highly indicative of an actual object being in that spot. So they're going to start, aiming the new stuff, because, that was, 35 years ago when, using technology from, basically Ghostbusters 1. And those old proton packs, and we know what happens if you cross those streams. But using that 1980s technology or 70s technology, because it was being used in the 80s. And so let's see what we can build into, and now what we can see out there, and see if there is a ninth planet out there. I mean, honestly, if you're talking about a ninth planet and it's in the range of the asteroid belt, you're talking about some pretty serious mineral rights.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of discussion about how that should go down, and it's funky. But the law on it, I believe, right now, the international law is you can't go out and claim an asteroid for yourself. You can't claim a planet. You can claim the area you land on, and that's it. So you get like a plot of land where you hit, and a mule. No, and
A mule.
But so that is that's a rather intriguing concept, and to see if they can, what this planet would be made of, what its history is. I mean, how is it formed? Why is it out there? What does it look like? Is it even round?
And why is it in the shape of a giant finger, just slowly turning our planetary system around?
And then we pull back, and it's a kid with a top. It's like, oh my God.
It wasn't ready.
Yeah, and in order to deal with these lovely astronomical things, DART is a new project that we've talked about before, whereby they are running a test. There's a twin asteroid, basically, heading across the solar system, and it's really no big deal. But what they're going to do is they're going to fire this thing up at the asteroid. It'll hit the asteroid and impact on it. And I think then...
I believe they're wanting to change its trajectory.
Yeah. Then we're going to see just how much it actually changed the trajectory in real life. The interesting thing is it sounds like it's going to actually make the impact, and they're not expecting it to move but, like a tenth of a degree. But we can detect that if it moves that little bit. But the key is, I think it's going to hit, and then it's going to keep the thrusters on. Oh. Although it's going to hit pretty hard. It's confusing in the way the article was written. But either way, this is a test to see if we can actually make an impact that'll make a difference. Now, obviously, they're shooting for the smaller one because we can make a bigger impact on the smaller one. Now, when you shift the smaller one, that is going to make a change in the larger one. Simply because nothing occurs in a vacuum. That was a joke for you space people out there. And so it's an interesting concept. I'm looking forward to seeing how the test results work, and hopefully they won't be too successful and it launches it off course and suddenly it's now heading right for Earth. Yeah, you can just see that happening. Oops. It's like the Russians and the Chinese blowing up all the satellites. Oh, we're testing our weapons systems. And it's like, no, you're introducing 1,500 pieces of shrapnel into the path of the space station, dumbass.
This is the same situation.
Yeah.
Throw this one off, and what's the big one going to do?
Yeah. Then after the big one does something, what's the other things that are in its path for the next 100 years going to do?
Yep.
I mean, again, nothing occurs in a vacuum, and I'm sorry, it's not a vacuum. There's other stuff out there. So, yeah, we can fret about it, and we can see what happens. And you know what? I mean, we're going to get hit sometime anyway. So, who cares if we caused it? It's a question of when, not if. Wow. We talked a little bit about the iPhone, Pegasus malware that was installed, spyware basically. And now Australian government is trying to pass a bill that is an anti-troll law. And what would an anti-troll law be? I mean, you're on the internet, there's going to be trolls, right? And there he is, the quintessential troll. Absolutely could not be better. And the problem is, they're saying, okay, defamation is a real thing.
Right.
Okay, and so if you're going to go out there and defame people, then you have to take responsibility for it. If it's not true, if it's libel, if it's slander, it'd be libel, I guess, because it's written, right? Is that the one? I don't remember. Whichever one it is, we'll call it defamation. But they're saying, so if they contact, if someone complains, hey, this person is defaming me, Facebook would have to say, oh, well, let me ask them to take it down and then ask their permission to give you their information so you can sue them. Of course, everyone would say, oh, yes, please send them. Here's my street address. That would happen every time. But, they're going to ask if it's okay. If they refuse, this law would then come into play.
Yeah.
And it would basically serve as a legal search warrant and force a subpoena, basically, a permanent subpoena that would then force Facebook to give that information over to the alleged victim.
Without their permission.
Without their permission. And
without the user's permission.
Right, without the troll's permission, let's put it that way. Okay.
Troll will
Which,
be
of course, the troll will never give permission. And it will unmask the troll. And so these are really serious circumstances, considering what we have seen recently with regards to deciding what is defamation. Because...
And what is true and what is not.
And what is true and what is not true. Because, how many people were saying that if you criticized, the 44th president's economic policies with regards to interest rates, it's because you were racist and you're defaming him. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
okay, if you have a problem with the current vice president not going to, the areas of concern on the southern border, it's because you're sexist and you're defaming her. And so you need to be outed. You can't have, and we've seen what happens when you get outed with, I think we've got 300 or 400 people now sitting in solitary confinement, okay, who have been outed on charges of simple things like trespassing.
Right.
Okay, and some of them weren't even trespassing. They had a bad identification. And so they were, this close to being thrown in jail when it's like, this is not a photograph of me. Your facial, recognition software failed. I was there, but that's not me. Mm-hmm. And so, there are serious issues here. And so when it comes to, this is basically a doxing platform. It's a, and if this goes, global, then the doxing of anyone that you feel is insulting you.
Correct.
That's serious.
And here in the U.S., when even if, where does it draw the line of, free speech between, can you speak your mind without somebody calling you out and saying that you're defaming them? I
got my first strike. I got my first strike on Facebook last week.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. I was very proud of myself. I referred to someone as a troll because it is a local politician's Facebook page, and this person who does not live in the district has no background available. They have no profile pic, no nothing. Okay, they are not a real person. They are a Russian bot. Okay, they are either Russian or Chinese.
How dare you?
They're not real. And I use the word troll, okay, to describe this person. I got a strike on Facebook. The troll didn't get the strike. The fake profile did not get the strike. The fake profile was used to give me, a real person, a strike.
Of course.
Think about that for a minute, okay? And now Australia says I need to be doxxed.
Yes.
Yes. So there you have it. Although I use my real name, so, it's kind of easy to out me on Facebook. Ooh. So there we have that one. Assassin's Creed. This is actually hysterical. Assassin's Creed Unity.
Historical.
Only it isn't.
I know.
That's the problem. Everybody thinks it is.
Yeah.
In the game Assassin's Creed Unity, it takes place in Paris. And so they have some incredibly realistic, constructions within the virtual world of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And of course, there was a fire last year in the Notre Dame Cathedral, and they want to rebuild it. And they're saying, hey, Assassin's Creed, why don't you go ahead and donate all those scans, okay, that you did in order to build this? And they're like, well, we're not going to talk about how we did it. We're not going to talk about, da-da-da. And as it turns out, analysis of their, and they're playing it up like, yeah, we have all these super secrets. And if they ask us, we'll share with them our stuff. But so far, they haven't asked. And, that sounds a little snubby, a little, whatever. But apparently what it is they don't actually have any scans at all. They simply used photographs and blueprints.
Oh, great.
To build the whole thing. And they did not send anybody in to do that kind of detail work. Of course, it brought up some really interesting stuff about French copyrights. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I followed it through. And France, let's take the Eiffel Tower, for example. Now, of course, France copyrighted the Eiffel Tower. You weren't allowed to use its image for any kind of commercial purpose. Now, we do that with the American flag. Okay, you're not allowed to use the American flag in an ad. Yeah, right. Surprise, a lot of people don't realize that. Okay, but the Eiffel Tower was copyrighted, and you had to have permission and pay royalties to the French government in order to use the Eiffel Tower. Well, when the copyright ran out, the Eiffel Tower went out and added all the pretty lights to it. In coincidentally exactly 100 years after, it was for the centennial. But now you can't use an image of the Eiffel Tower lit up at night for any kind of commercial endeavor because those lights are now copyrighted.
Oh, wow.
And the Cathedral of Notre Dame is actually not owned by the Catholic Church, it's owned by the French government. And so as they rebuild it, it now adds all new copyright protection onto the Notre Dame Cathedral, which is why when you look at, if you're looking inside Assassin's Creed, okay, this particular game, you'll see all kinds of things are different, like the big, beautiful, rosary window that did not get broken. Thank God. Okay, it did not get broken. If you compare the two images, and the design in the glass is different. Why? Because France has a copyright on that glass, and you're not allowed to show it, okay, for a commercial purpose. Yeah. And so that window there, the design within, now the design of the glass, the lead all around it, that's all the same, all the frame. But the design of the glass itself is protected by French copyright. Yeah. So it's just weird stuff like that. It's like, well, I suppose that's one way to do it, And so
France,
all it does is make people change the design so that it's just different enough that you don't get anything out of it.
Right.
And when people go there, they're kind of disappointed because your window doesn't look as cool as the window in the game, which actually has a lot more detail in it. So, yeah, just simple stuff like that. Yeah, they also added the wires and the cables across because in Assassin's Creed, the parkour element is really big and being able to jump and swing and da-da-da. Well, there's no way to get across up, above the ground floor. And so they added cables and such to give, the game characters the ability to run across the floor. So there's some stupid stuff like that. Let's see. Did you read up on this next one about Apple and Google actually both getting hit?
Getting hit?
Yeah, getting hit with the $10 million fines for not sufficiently disclosing that their customers' data was being used for commercial purposes and exactly how it might be used. I mean,
that was the oddest thing. I read it a week ago, and it was like they're talking about Italy's suing Apple about using people's data, one of the most secure companies out there.
That doesn't actually share the data.
They're suing them over privacy concerns, and that's in itself just makes no sense because they're the ones alerting the consumers, hey, these apps are using your private information across multiple apps, and you've been reading in the news how multiple companies are losing billions of dollars in ad revenue because they can't run their ads and some of their whole platforms were based on that marketing.
Yep.
And they can't get that user information. But it's odd that Italy decided that they're going to sue Apple over it, and it's not Apple who's taking that information.
And but again, this lawsuit was filed quite a while ago, and this judgment just came out for $10 million. And both Apple and Google were hit with $10 million fines
Now, I
for
can understand.
basically the same charge, which is ridiculous because Apple and Google are like night and day when it comes to privacy.
Yes.
And how it's used. But the thing is, Apple, of course, knows what Apple products you have because you have them registered. And so for Apple to communicate with Apple that you own an iPhone 10
and want to and receive a phone call on that and your tablet you own.
and and so they let you know that, hey, your iPhone 10 is worth $400 on a trade-in. Do you want a 13? Is, somehow violating some kind of trust. Like, you're damn right I want Apple to know what I own.
No, and
I mean, that's what makes it all work.
Apple's using it within their
ecosystem.
Their ecosystem. It's
Yes.
not being sold to third parties.
No,
This
exactly.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Whereas Google is in the business. Google is not a software company. Google is a consumer information company. And not that they provide information to consumers. They provide information about consumers to marketing agencies, advertising agencies. That's what they do. They sell information about people. They gather information. They don't care what the product is. They don't care what they have to put in front of you to get the highest quality information that they can then turn around and sell, because that is where they make their money. They make their money selling the information. That's it.
And they sell the information to marketers, and the marketers also use their platform, Google's platform, to go out there and market those people, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I mean, Google Ads is nothing but a democratized, it's well, Google Ads came first, but it is a democratized system whereby you can go in and have access to the Google database of people, and they will give you the people that you pay for, and that's it.
Googleans.
Yeah, Googlins. I like that. Yeah, Googians. Let's get rid of the L. It's hard.
I know.
Yeah, Googians. Guggenheims. I just made it into a museum. What do you know? So, yeah, it's a little weird because, it's one of those, we didn't disclose that we know you have an Apple product.
That you bought something from us?
That you bought from us.
Oh,
this,
what are we going to do?
Yeah, I mean,
this is not going to hold up. This will be.
Yeah, they're going to lose it on appeal for Google, for Apple anyway.
Side,
yeah, for Apple's side. Yeah.
Just a waste of breath.
Yeah, it really is. $10 million, whatever. The next thing on our list is really cool. Of course, Oculus and Meta and all of that's going on over in the Facebook world is pretty damned impressive, okay? But now along comes Apple.
Yeah.
And Apple is creating a virtual reality goggle. That is really sad. That is actually a cheap, snorkeling mask with a Google label put on the visor. But now we know how to make them and sell them. I'm going on eBay as soon as we leave here and start to sell those. And, it requires an app to activate that will be available in 2023.
And they're talking about AR, which is...
VR and AR.
Yeah, but the AR is augmented reality.
Yes.
So a lot of times you're going to see, you'll see the real world through... If you looked at that picture, it showed the eyesight camera already on the front of it. Probably has LiDAR and everything like that. So it's going to allow you to see the real world and then overlay over it. Now, the whole premise is eventually to use like a regular pair of glasses and eventually have the overlays and everything, projected into the lenses. But it looks like, they're going to stick with the goggles first and until they perfect the screens and the resolution for the glasses.
Yeah, I mean, current AR technology has probably advanced a lot since I bought what I have, but it uses the same technology as a heads-up tactical display, whereby you're looking through, or hell, I have it in my Prius, okay, on the dashboard. The dashboard is actually a reflection. Okay, and so there's a glass that's at an angle. The dashboard is actually down low, and it's just reflecting up off the glass.
Holograph technology.
Sort of, but it's you're just seeing a reflection. And so, if depending upon how bright it is, how light it is outside, you can set that up so you're in a reasonably normal inside room, and you'll see the room and you'll see the reflection in the same glass. And that's okay, but you never get a fully non-transparent figure. Okay, you can always see something through it, and the lighter it is outside, the more you can see through it.
Well, I like.
So in this case, if they're actually running with a full sealed system, and they're transmitting the outside view and overlaying something into it, now you're talking about real augmented reality at that point.
Right.
But at that point, even the augmentation is virtual.
True, because you're what you're seeing is still being.
It's just a digital image of something, okay? And just because it's coming from in front of your face doesn't make it any less virtual.
Correct.
It is the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that would look really weird, though. It's like taking your iPhone and bending it around your face.
Which is how I've got 2 AR headsets, and that's how they work.
Yeah.
The iPhone just sits in them. Actually, one's a VR headset, the other's an AR.
The thing I like, though, is being able to use they're talking about, from some of the information that's leaked, possibly using an M1 style chip inside the unit, but also using a separate chip to do the communication for any outside sensors and stuff like that. So that way, this one chip can go ahead and process all the inputs and outputs of the device. And then the M1 can do most of the graphics driven, and get all that information from the other chip once it's already processed and stuff. That would cut down on performance. Increase performance. And
you won't have the lag
on
time.
Heat and stuff, and also allow better battery performance. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So keep your eyes open. Pun intended. Apple's getting into the VR world.
And get ready to drop another $1,000.
And it'll be the companion piece for your phone. And the thing is, because it's Apple, what's probably going to come out will not look like snorkeling goggles that you bought at Five Below. It will actually look like Ray-Ban glasses.
Yeah.
And which was the second image we saw up there a minute ago. With Bose making the sunglasses now, and those are freaking awesome. The sound quality is incredible. I'm looking forward to see what they come up with. Spotify is now using a Discover bit of its platform in which you basically swipe through videos. So
you're going to be swiping through music videos?
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
But I don't know what that's going to change in the future as Spotify becomes more of a community. I mean, since day one, Spotify has been a community. A lot of people don't think of it that way. But when you build your playlist, somebody else can borrow it. Somebody else can listen to your playlist. You look very afraid of that.
Yes.
Yes.
How dare they enjoy what I hear?
It's going to be like, whoa, Anthony Sakovich's favorites, and I've got It's Raining Men. Wait a minute, It could be another case of being outed and doxxed, but it's been that way from the beginning. And, you could...
These songs are politically charged.
Yes, because when you look at when you do a search, playlists come up.
Yeah.
And Spotify didn't build those playlists.
No,
people did. And so you're going to see what's going on. And, same thing here. They're going to be increasing the interactivity of the community as they go forward. And it wouldn't surprise me. Right now they've got... they launched Anchor, which is freaking awesome. It is a podcast platform.
Oh.
And it is one of the easiest, fun to use. You can drop commercials into it. They let you start monetizing with just 50 listens. Not 50 followers, 50 downloads.
Wow.
And you can start monetizing. And, of course, the one ad that always comes up is the one for Anchor. It's your first one. But it's something, okay? And you're allowed to get some legs under you. And it allows you to drop your commercials in really easily to all of your recordings. And it'll allow you to record live straight into Anchor. It's its own recording studio as well.
Really?
So Spotify is really cutting edge on this stuff. I love what they're doing. And, of course, your podcast immediately appears on Spotify. And then it can go out to other platforms. Like I've got, one right now that's on like 6 different platforms courtesy of Anchor, including iTunes. So it's out there on Apple Podcasts.
Additional cost? Or?
No, it's all free. It's all free.
Free 99, folks.
Yep,
Free 99.
That's a Cyber Monday special, which today is Cyber Monday. So, get out there and burn up those pixels, people.
Yeah, hopefully they're watching us and on some unnamed apps making purchases.
That is correct. Pinterest had a lawsuit against them for racial and gender discrimination, which sounded like Pinterest was running like your typical boys club up at the top.
Okay.
And the employees, and it's funny, but the shareholders are the ones that sued. Because they're saying, oh my God, all these allegations are killing our share value.
True.
So the shareholders are the ones who are suing and pushing for it, and they had to go ahead and make amends and apologize and donate money and yada yada. So there you go. Now everyone there is equal. And the last story, which is kind of a tech fail, there was a big auction for a copy of the Constitution, and they raised like $54 million to buy it. And this one group did, and then they didn't get the bid. So they're trying to figure out how to give the money back. It was all gathered in Ethereum Bitcoin. And the problem with Ethereum Bitcoin is it has huge transaction costs on cash transfers.
Oh, boy.
So it's like $50 to $100 per transfer. So if you paid them to get $200 in the first place, you probably paid $70 in fees. So you paid $270 for them to get it. Then if they're going to refund you, you got to pay another $70. So you're paying $140 to get your $200 back.
Damn.
So it's worth $60, but Jiminy Christmas, everybody's like, can't you just use the money for something else, please? Because what's the point? And they couldn't agree on anything else, so they're just saying, nope, come take your money. $27 million has been refunded. With the big guys, a $50, $70 on a $10,000 donation is no big deal. But we are little guys here, and we need your help. This is Tech Shamans at WeBeamTV.com if you have any questions. And if you want to donate your Ethereum Bitcoin to us, we will gladly take it. Until then, we'll see you next week.
See you.
Take care, everybody.
Understand, cause we are the Tech Shamans. Dude, I got this cool thing to show you. Really, man? Yeah, it's far out and technical and stuff, boy, so yeah. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Come on and turn it on. Tune into the Tech Shamans. Cool.